All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. Thank you for taking time out of your day to check the video out. We have more PlayStation news, rumors, and leaks to go over and cover here today. So if you end up enjoying the video or finding it informative, be sure to leave it a like. And if you are new here to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button as well. We're starting here with a very interesting interview that was done with former PlayStation boss Shawn Layden, where he talks about the future of consoles and how he believes we are reaching the final spec for what a console can be, but he also talks about the idea of PlayStation games going to Xbox and kind of giving his opinion there. So obviously Shawn Layden doesn't work for PlayStation anymore, but still he was there for like 30 years, and he was there for the PS4 era, where I think that's probably what people associate him most with. So I think it's just interesting to kind of get his insight here. He was speaking with Eurogamer about the current state of the gaming industry and consoles. Shawn Layden provided some interesting insights on whether consoles can continue to exist in the long term, and if the console war will continue in the future. Taking Nintendo out of the equation, as the company has always managed to do things differently than anyone else, according to the former PlayStation boss, it's time to start thinking about what the purpose of a proprietary console is. Generational leaps in the past have been huge on pretty much every front, but right now we are getting to the point that differences between generations and systems are minimal, and most people are not interested in teraflops and ray tracing. As such, the former PlayStation boss thinks that a big generational leap in power is never happening again, as the only leap that's left to make is the creation of perfectly realized human actors in a game that you completely control, which is something that he thinks will eventually happen. At this point, however, the innovation curve of hardware is starting to plateau, and the homogenization of gaming hardware results in very little differences between PlayStation and Xbox hardware, since both are now powered by AMD. There will be improvements in the future, but we are now close to the final spec for what a console could be. Ultimately, this could be the end of the console war, according to Shawn Layden, who gave the example of the Betamax, Sony's short-lived answer to the VHS format. Eventually, the industry came together on the format, and the competition switched on the content. This should be the same in the gaming industry, as content should be the competition for publishers, not which hardware you get behind. For this reason, according to Shawn Layden, the console will become irrelevant in the next few generations. Speaking about content, the former PlayStation boss provided some interesting comments regarding the possibility of Sony's games releasing on either Xbox or Nintendo systems. PlayStation has been the market leader for almost every generation, and with such a strong lead, there would be no reason to release games on competing hardware, as the small additional sales wouldn't be worth it against the brand impact. Sony is already getting anger from users when they release a former PlayStation exclusive on PC 18 months later, and if this is happening on PC, it would be much, much worse by releasing games on Xbox consoles. The former PlayStation boss's comments on how there will never be a massive generational leap in the future are quite interesting, especially in light of Microsoft promising the biggest leap ever with the next Xbox. So that's how the article concluded there. But yeah, I mean, interesting insight from Shawn Layden. I think a lot of people do miss Shawn Layden and wish that he was still at PlayStation. But it's interesting because we're kind of getting insight into what Shawn Layden would be doing if he was running PlayStation right now, where he definitely believes that, consoles will have a place, but they're going to become less and less relevant simply due to the law of diminishing returns and people just starting to lose interest because there isn't that, that big wow factor anymore when they reveal a new console. And he also makes it clear that he doesn't believe putting games on Xbox would really be worth it. And I agree with that. I think that that's where what we see Sony doing now, Shawn Layden will be doing the same thing, where it's just like, yeah, it's just not going to be worth it, right, at the end of the day. So there you go. Just thought I would go over what Shawn had to say there. But we also have an interview with Hermen Hulst, the current PlayStation CEO. Sony Interactive Entertainment boss Hermen Hulst has told BBC that the company wants to elevate PlayStation IP outside of video games in the wider entertainment industry. Sony Group is in a unique position to attain the goal with dedicated entertainment teams like Sony Pictures and PlayStation Productions, and the company wants to capitalize on that. God of War's Amazon series suffered a bit of a setback recently as the departures of its showrunner and executive producers prompted a complete reset. However, Sony still seems bullish about the endeavor, and Hulst told BBC that he's looking forward to that. I'm hoping to raise the PlayStation IP outside of just the gaming category and elevate it so it sits comfortably within the larger entertainment industry, he says. Now, what's interesting is with this interview, Hermen Hulst also touched on AI. And what he said is that obviously AI is going to play a major role in game development in the future, but he did make a pretty strong statement about how AI is not to replace humans, and humans need to continue to make games. People need to continue to make games. And I think that's, worth pointing out because, these are things that I think people are going to want to know going into the future. Like, so, is Sony just basically going to make games with AI, or are they still going to have people making them? And of course, right now, this is their stance where they want people making games and AI to just kind of work on the more, I guess you could say, mundane stuff to kind of free up some of the developers to start doing, I guess, to focus on the more important aspects of the game development side that aren't so tedious per se, right? But other than that, he didn't really reveal much else in this interview. Hideaki Nishino was also part of the interview. I went over it in my stream the other day, and there wasn't anything that significant revealed. But the one thing I do want to point out before moving on is with Hermen Hulst's comments about wanting to elevate PlayStation IP, I think that this is something we've been seeing, and it's very clear that Sony they are very, very serious about making it so that, IP like God of War, The Last of Us, Horizon, etc., that these are intellectual properties that are recognized well beyond gaming. And I don't know that that necessarily gets people that excited, like the core gamers who know these properties and were there day one, on the game side. I don't know that that gets people excited necessarily, but this is something that Sony is aggressively pursuing. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Moving on to the next topic here, we're talking about the PS5 Pro. A couple of things here. So first, there was an ultimate comparison video that was done that features over 20 patched and unpatched games. This was released by El Analista de Bits, and I think that this is it's a long video. It's like an hour and a half, but it's really interesting because the conversation surrounding the PS5 Pro has taken a bit of a turn, I would say, where I'm starting to notice a lot more negativity. I mean, there's already a lot of negativity, but now that we're like a couple weeks from launch, something that has been revealed is that there are a few games, as we've talked about on the channel, that are struggling, right? Games that actually look and run worse. The problem with this conversation, and I think where it gets a little bit disingenuous, is not the fact that people are upset about that, because that is worth being upset about. You pay $700 for a Pro model console. You do not expect any games to run worse than the base model, right? And I think it's particularly bad for those who specifically were targeting these games and waiting to play them on the PS5 Pro. So I don't think the disingenuous part is people being upset or frustrated. I think the disingenuous part is when people are completely overlooking the fact that there are also many games that are running better, that do look better. And that's not me defending the PS5 Pro, because I know how people take it. It's one of these situations where it's like, pick your side. Either you love the PS5 Pro and it's great, or you hate it and you despise it. I don't think it's either of those things. I think the reality is there are development teams that are struggling to properly optimize for the PS5 Pro due to PSSR, and it's unfortunate, right? It sucks, and it's, again, completely understandable that anybody who wants to play these games is going to feel very frustrated. But to make it sound like the PS5 Pro is not doing anything that it was promised to do, I think that's where people are taking it a bit too far. But at the end of the day, what I will maintain is that this is not a good look. It doesn't really matter, right? I think to the person who wants to play Silent Hill 2, who wants to play Avatar, who wants to play Alan Wake, or these games, or Star Wars Jedi Survivor, these games that have proven to really be struggling on the PS5 Pro and potentially looking worse, I don't think it really matters to that person that there are all these other games that are doing fine, because the game that they want to play is not. And I've actually seen people saying that they've been considering hooking up their base PS5 to play these games because, unfortunately, developers are not giving the option to turn the Pro mode off, which just makes it so much worse. So, at the end of the day, this is I would say, relatively serious problem that Sony has to get a hold of. And maybe they have to do so by getting in contact with these developers and really kind of working with them and figuring out what's going on, because this is, we're seeing the Digital Foundry analysis videos come out, and a lot of them, again, are good. The differences aren't like major like night and day, but a lot of them are good. I would say a lot of them are okay, good, or great. But those ones that are not, those ones that are problematic, those are the ones that people are fixated on. And that's a problem for Sony. That's a problem for the PS5 Pro. The PS5 Pro is already facing an uphill battle with the pricing and, the fact that they're not including a disc drive with a stand. People were all over Sony for this already, which is understandable. But adding this on top of that pile, it's not a good look. So Sony's got to figure this out, man. At the end of the day, hopefully developers will be able to get a better hold of this, and this will be a situation that honestly is just something we kind of look back on as, at the launch, right? The launch, there were a couple of problems, but everything's fine now. That's the hope anyway. But guys, that is going to do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it informative. If you did, be sure to leave it a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new, hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share the video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.